Hello everyone! In this lesson, we will create a new post type for campuses. At this point so far, we've created post types for events, programs, and professors. Right, so now we want to create a new post type named campuses. So let's jump into our text editor, and instead of our theme folder, I want you to jump into the MU or must use plugins folder, and let's jump into this file. In order to avoid extra typing, why don't we just duplicate or copy and paste this code for the event post type? Right, so let's copy and paste these 15 or so lines. And then maybe just right above that, let's paste it in. And now we can just change the word from event to campus. So on this comment line, campus post type. For the actual code name or variable name for the post type, let's change that to single campus. Don't need that to be plural. Let's set the archive URL to be campuses, as in plural. Okay, next we can edit all of the different labels. So this should be plural and capitalized, campuses. Add new campus. You can even just copy and paste the word, right? But this one should be plural, so campuses. And finally, let's choose a new dash icon or menu icon. So instead of dash icons calendar, let's go with dash icons dash location dash alt. Okay, let's go ahead and save this. And if we jump back into the admin, we now see this brand new post type named campuses. And the icon looks like a map with a pin on it, which will fit the theme of our different campus locations. So right now, why don't we go ahead and create a few new campus posts. So add new. Why don't we title this campus Downtown West? Let's give it a bit of dummy content. Why don't we give it a subtitle of a beautiful campus in the heart of downtown? Okay, let's go ahead and save or publish that. And while we're at it, why don't we create another new campus? So add new. Let's call this Downtown East. Give it some dummy content. Not all of the campuses need a subtitle, so let's just go ahead and save or publish this one. And then let's click on the main campuses link in the sidebar to see a list of all of our campuses so far. So we've just got the 2, but you could imagine that our university maybe has 5 or 10 different campus locations throughout town or throughout the city. So if we've got different locations all throughout the city, it would be nice if on the front end of our website we had an interactive Google map with a pin for each one of our campus locations. Now, in order to pin a location on a map, we're going to need to know more than just the title of a post and a bit of dummy content, right? So if I click on Downtown West, what I'm trying to say is that in addition to the title field and the content field, we need a new custom field down here where you can drag around and zoom around on a Google map and then click where you want the pin to be. And then it will save the latitude and longitude and the address into our database. So we know what to do. When you want to add a new custom field, we can make use of our Advanced Custom Fields plugin. So down towards the bottom of the sidebar, let's click on Custom Fields. And let's create a new field group. So Add New button. Why don't we name this group Map Location? Okay, so that's the group name, but we need to create the actual field. So Add Field. Why don't we also just name the field Map Location? And then here's the important part. For the field type choice, instead of text, if we look down a bit, we see an option named Google Map. Right, so let's set the field type to Google Map. We don't need any field instructions. I do think we should set this to be required, so required yes. You shouldn't be allowed to create a campus unless you provide a location for the campus. Let's go ahead and keep scrolling down. All of these other default values will work just perfectly. But if we scroll down, I do want to make sure that we fill out the location box. So let's say, show this field group only if post type is equal to, and let's set this to campus. Right, because we don't need to set a map location for a blog post or a traditional page. So campus, and then let's just scroll up and save or publish our new field. Okay, and let's go test it out. So if we click on campuses again, and let's try to edit Downtown West, and now you might see a map for that new custom field, but what's more likely is that you see a big error message like this. So what's going on? Why would you see an error message here instead of the map field? First of all, this error is totally normal and to be expected. In order to talk to the Google Maps service on a website, you need a Google Maps API key. Now you might be thinking, but hey, I've embedded Google Maps on a website before, and I didn't need an API key then. Well, in reality, you were probably just importing an iframe that pointed towards a web page that lived on Google servers. Instead of that, we want to actually be able to talk to the Google Maps service using JavaScript. But Google is going to ignore us unless we have an API key. So at this point, you might be wondering, what in the world is an API key? I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent, but an API key is just a string of letters and numbers. You could almost think of it as a password, but you don't always need to keep it a complete secret like a real password. Basically, it's a secret handshake that we're going to make with the Google servers, so it will let us actually communicate with the Google Maps service. Now, if you're wondering why I could actually see the map in this tab in my browser and actually use the custom maps field, it's because up in the address bar, you can see that this tab is connecting to the preview proxy server. Remember, if you run gulp watch in the command line, it will spin up a server that we can talk to at this URL. Now basically, if Google sees localhost as your domain, it's going to give you a free pass. Google's going to say, okay, I recognize that you're not actually working on a real website yet. You're just in development mode still. So you're going to get a free pass and you're allowed to talk to the Google Maps service. But in this browser tab where we see the error message, you'll notice that I'm trying to connect directly to fictionaluniversity.dev. Now, you and I know that this is just a local environment dev domain, but Google sees this domain, and for all they know, it's a real live website. So they're going to lock us out, and we're going to see an error here until we plug in a secret API key. But don't worry, obtaining an API key from Google is a piece of cake. So if I jump over to this tab, you can either pause the lesson right now and try to type in this URL that you see here, or you should find a link to this URL in the resources for this lesson. But anyways, this page that lives on developers.google.com, if you simply visit this page while you're signed in to a Google account, you've probably already got a Google account if you've ever used Gmail or YouTube or Google Docs. But yeah, just sign into your Google account, visit this URL, and then all you need to do is click this Get a Key button. Now you probably won't have any existing projects, so you can just click this and click Create a New Project. You can name it whatever you want, the name doesn't matter. I'll just call this one Fictional University, and then click Create and Enable API. Cool, and then we can see Google gives you a string of letters and numbers, and that is your API key. So go ahead and select those letters and numbers and copy them into your clipboard. And now you and I just need to pass this key along to WordPress and the Custom Fields plugin, right? So then it will have permission to talk to the Google Maps service. So back in our text editor, we can forget about the MU plugins folder for now. Let's jump back to our theme folder. And I want you to open up functions.php. Let's scroll down to the very bottom and drop down to a new line. And let's say add filter. And for the first argument, we want to target that advanced custom fields plugin and let it know that we have a Google Maps API key. So let's say ACF, which stands for Advanced Custom Fields, / and then let's look in fields. We are interested in the Google Map type of field, and we're dealing with the API. Okay, now the second argument is just the name of a function that we are going to create. So we could name this whatever we want. Why don't we call it University Map Key? Okay, now if we are telling WordPress to run a function with this name, we better make sure and actually create that function. So let's say function, and let's reuse that name, University Map Key, parentheses, curly brackets. Within the signature for this function, within the parentheses, let's give it a parameter of $API. The Advanced Custom Fields plugin will make this data available to us. So now we can use it within the body of our function. So let's just target that data, or that array I should say. Let's look inside that array for a property named key. And then we're just going to set that to equal quotes. And then at this point you can just paste in the Google Maps API key that you generated, right? Or that Google gave to you. So let's add a semicolon at the end of that line. And then while we are still in the body of the function, let's just return that API array. So basically the plugin gave us this piece of data to work with. We manipulated a property of it, and then we'd return it right back. So let's go ahead and save that. And now if I jump back to the browser tab with that big error message for the map field, as soon as I refresh the screen, cool, the map indeed works. Let's test it out and try to pin a location for this Downtown West campus. So in this text field right above the map, you can just begin searching for your local city or town or wherever you want to create this fictional university. I'm going to pretend that it's in New York City, so maybe I'll search for Manhattan, New York, and then I can click on this suggestion. Cool, and then you can zoom in on the map if you scroll up with your mouse wheel or trackpad. And I'm saying this is Downtown West, so I'm going to place a pin maybe towards the west side of this, maybe right here. Doesn't matter, it's just totally made up. But here we can see the pin. So now let's go ahead and save this post. And then let's go assign a location for Downtown East. So click on Campuses. Let's edit this one, Downtown East. Let's search again for Manhattan. Zoom in a little bit. Maybe we'll say that the Eastern Campus is over here. Okay, let's go ahead and update or save that post. Okay, so we now have two campuses with map locations. So now the question becomes, if I jump to the front end of the website, you could imagine that if we clicked on campuses up in the header, we would want an interactive Google map with the different pins to all of our campuses. So the question is, how in the world do we create that? Well, that's exactly what we are going to learn how to do in our next lesson. Let's keep things rolling, and I will see you then.